across America. Live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me. It is the Wednesday edition of Point of View, and in the next 2 hours, we're going to be talking with everybody from Gary Bauer to Joshua Barnes, but I thought we might start off, first of all, talking about artificial intelligence, and in order to do that, we have in studio with us today, Liberty McArtor, and Liberty, this is something that you and I have been writing about for some time. We're going to have a Future Outlook magazine on that, but you've done a number of the various podcasts in this regard, and it does seem to me that many people are kind of wondering about the future because of this issue of artificial intelligence.
Well, absolutely. It's something that I think is on people's minds more and more every day. You open up Twitter or X or Facebook or something like that, and you're just seeing all these new updates about Claude and ChatGPT and what they can do. And one of the things that I try to focus on in the podcast or in our writings or even on the roundtable here at Point of View is say, okay, this is a new technology. It maybe is a new tool. It seems overwhelming. Some people are very excited about it. Other people are very kind of doomers about it. But what about the biblical worldview? And it may seem challenging to apply that to something that we've never really experienced before. But I'm hoping that maybe we can help people ask the right kinds of questions as we enter what is really a new era.
And I think a lot of people wonder about their jobs because change is always fearful for individuals. And one of the articles I've posted here is a study that was done by Andrej Karpathy. If that name is not familiar to you, he's one of the co-founders of OpenAI. And this came out a couple of weeks ago, but I thought we would post it because what he did was he looked at all the various professions, especially some of those where they earn quite a bit of money, and found that, and give kind of a code to each one. Certain ones are going to be more disrupted than others. And the first thing is that this would be very helpful if you are in that profession, or if your children or grandchildren might be going into a profession to see what might be the impact. But I think it's a good illustration that you might be looking to the future. You know, the sons of Issachar are men who understood the times with knowledge of what Israel was to do. We need to understand our times. And again, if you are a buggy whip manufacturer, when people are starting to use cars, you might want to rethink your profession. If you are in the business of producing typewriters at a time when everybody's putting personal computers on their desk, you might want to think about that as well. But it's a reminder that we are in the midst of a significant amount of change in the future. And so I posted that. So if you want to follow some of the links, there's a whole chart here that breaks it down, in which he gives a number from 1 to 10. And some of the individuals find themselves with higher numbers, oftentimes people that make very good amounts of money because we might not need as many computer programmers and things like that. And others who are maybe working more in the manual field area. For example, they had nursing assistants and healthcare aides and even barbers and things like that having a score of 2. So you can begin to get a little bit of a sense by at least one person's estimate of what might be the disruption or lack of disruption of AI in the workforce.
Yes, I have two things to say, especially to parents and grandparents with kids in school age. Trade school and classical education, which may seem like those are opposite things, but with a classical education, people really need to know what it means to be human, how to adapt and learn, also to be widely read and have that historical perspective. And then the hands-on stuff, that is some looking at now, kind of the predictions, those are some of the most secure jobs that are predicted to stay that way. But another thing I would encourage people about too is not to worry too much, because an AI, no matter how powerful or effective it is, can never replace human connection. It can never replace the image of God that we humans have. And so one of the things on here, it says like kindergarten teachers and middle school teachers are at a high risk of being replaced. I really don't think so, because I think it's hard to separate relationship from
Right.
teaching and learning. So some of those things, take it with a grain of salt, but just continue to be flexible and as widely educated as possible.
One of the other articles we'll get to a little bit later is the supersonic tsunami. That is a phrase that was first coined by Elon Musk, but Peter Diamandis has been talking about that quite a bit, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But we are in the middle day of our Truth Team Week, and once again, we have in studio with us Collin Lambert.
It's great to be here, and Truth Team Week is such an important week for this radio program. Whether you are been listening for a short amount of time or many years, we want you to get engaged. It is so critical that you become a part of this Truth Team, and this is the week. We do a week in the spring, a week in the fall. These are really the key times for you to participate. How do you do it? It's very simple. You call 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or go to pointofview.net, and we'll take your call right away. If you go to pointofview.net, you click through, there's a form. Just takes a couple of minutes to do. And to get us started today, guys, we've got a wonderful couple of friends, Michael in Georgia and Jenny in Illinois, who've put together a matching challenge gift of $1,000 that will be matched dollar for dollar. So if you give $50, they'll put in $50. You give $30 a month, they'll put in $30 a month, up to that $1,000 total. It's a great time to give right now. Now, you might have listened yesterday. You heard us go off the air. We met the challenge yesterday afternoon, but these gifts came in today, last night before it ended, and again today. So we now have the opportunity to have a fresh couple of matches available. So no better time than right now. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. Dollar for dollar match up to $1,000. And as I always like to say, when we get a match, go. It's time.
And it is time for you to make that phone call. Just a minute, we're going to be talking with our good friend Gary Bauer, and he's got a number of comments. As a matter of fact, one that we'll be talking about from his end-of-day report, and I think you'll appreciate that as well. But also, I just a little bit later want to once again come back to this idea of this supersonic tsunami, in which Peter Diamandis is saying, look, you can either be completely overwhelmed by it or you can surf on the top of it. But he says everything is changing everywhere all at once. Most of us now have a super intelligence in our pocket. He says we have an Einstein in our pocket. And when you realize that 8 billion people in the world possibly could have access for this kind of artificial intelligence, this is a great time to be alive. But of course, there's going to be some disruption as well. And that's why we want to really continue to talk about those issues here on Point of View. The various podcasts that we have cover that, and we have some good articles on that. But again, Collin, we need to remind people that when we have a match on the table, we really need to hear from people.
Absolutely. It's the best time to call because your gift is doubled, your impact is doubled, and we are so grateful for our friends Michael in Georgia and Jenny in Illinois for putting this gift together to match your gift right now. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Every gift right now doubled up to $1,000.
When we come back, we'll talk with our good friend Gary Bauer. We'll be talking about the war in Iran, some domestic issues as well, but we'll come back to it because I know Liberty and I want to talk about what about all these humanoid robotics and what about all these other kinds of things that are coming down the pike. We will certainly cover that a little bit later, but this is a perfect time to call. You won't miss any content. 1-800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151. Of course, you can also go to the website, pointofview.net. Dollar for dollar match on the table. We'll be right back.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Conspiracy theories about Israel can be heard on many talk programs and can be read in many blog posts. Danny Bermawi took the time to list 8 common conspiracy theories about Israel and provides a short response to each of them. One is the belief that Israel drags the United States into Middle Eastern wars. He reminds us the U.S. was engaged in Middle Eastern conflicts before the founding of Israel. He also points to many conflicts that were driven by American priorities that were not because of Israel's prompting. Another myth is that Israel would not exist without U.S. tax money. This narrative ignores Israel's self-reliance and economic status, Israel's GDP driven by tech innovation, pharmaceuticals, and defense exports is larger than most states and equivalent to economies like Sweden or Poland. What about the claim that Christians are oppressed in Israel? A quick answer to that is to compare the rights of Christians in Muslim countries to their rights in Israel, where they have full citizenship rights. Another claim is that Israel is a violent country, but the numbers from historical records and verified reports reveal the opposite. Also, the numbers often cited by critics do not consider the nature of urban warfare. Now, some of the Israel conspiracy theories involve Mossad. Supposedly Mossad was behind Jeffrey Epstein, but no U.S. intelligence agency has ever corroborated such a relationship. Mossad supposedly was planting bombs in Qatar and Saudi Arabia in an effort to destabilize these countries and drag them into war. Qatar's foreign ministry refuted such allegations. I recommend this article because it provides concrete answers and statistics to many of the common conspiracy theories. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Restoring America's godly heritage. Point of View.
Well, let me tell you what I know about Point of View. It inspires me to make a pledge right now for my organization to you, because you have been a part of this entire change in direction of our nation when it comes to life. I do not believe we could have done it without the partnership that you help lead on. You do something that I could never do. I just know that your voice has been incredibly powerful over time. And speaking to people while they're in the car, while they are living their lives, real human beings everywhere who need to know what's going on, need to know how to act to save lives. It's just so clear and evident to our entire team across the country and in D.C. that you understand grassroots up and top roots down in a way that nobody else does. And so that's why I'm going to make a pledge right now, but I just want you to know it's a dedication from the heart and also just from practical strategy.
Point of View. Restoring America's godly heritage.
Marjorie Dannenfelser, again, is the head of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, a very good friend. And notice the other day when we were talking about this issue of chemical abortion with a senator from Missouri, she was actually there as well when Josh Hawley was talking about some of that. And we have in studio with us today Liberty at McArtor as well as Collin Lambert. How are we doing on the match?
Well, nothing yet. We're looking for our first call.
Okay.
You can be the first one to help with this match. We've got a $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board. That means your gift, your impact is doubled right now at 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. I want to encourage you, maybe if you've never given a gift before to Point of View, many of you have been listening for years, you've never given, you've never joined the team. This is Truth Team Week. We want you on the team. And for the first time, gift givers, we've got what we call the Patriot Pack. These are these booklets that the team does every month, or maybe more than every month. But this one has One Nation Under God, the Bill of Rights, Church and State, Patriot Preachers, and the Declaration. So all five go out to you as just a special thank you. It's the Patriot Pack. If you're first time giving, 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. Again, $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board. Your gift is doubled right now. Finally, let me just say this. You mentioned it. It's Wednesday. We're halfway there. We're nowhere near halfway on our goal for the week. Our goal is $150,000. We have about $120,000, $25,000 to go. So everybody doing something is going to get us there more quickly.
Gary Bauer with us, a good friend of the ministry. Again, an individual that is with American values. Of course, the Campaign for Working Families, worked under Ronald Reagan's administration as Chief Domestic Policy Advisor. And welcome back, Gary.
Thank you, Kerby. Great to be with you as always.
We always post to one of your end-of-day reports. The one we post is for Monday, but I thought I'd pick out something from Tuesday because you pointed out that when it comes to whether or not we believe President Trump or we believe the Iranians, you say the big media actually sort of has this idea of a coin toss. Not sure we should believe the president or Iran. The other day, Gary, we had a piece where one of these writers said, "'Tis just a flesh wound," which is the argument being made by Iran that, oh, we're doing fine, we're winning the war. And it seems like some of the mainstream press is sort of having that same kind of mindset. But I still can't quite get how you would say, I will trust with about the same amount of credibility the Iranian mullahs as I do the White House. Your thoughts?
Well, Kerby, that's a great summary of the point I was trying to make. Look, the American media has been blessed to be in a country where they have the highest degree of freedom of the press than probably any place in the world. And yet they seem curiously neutral when it comes to defending the country that gives them that freedom of the press. And to see the New York Times and some of these other outlets saying, well, on the one hand, the President and the Secretary of State and the Department of the Secretary of War say that this is happening on this, but on the other hand, those good guys, the mullahs, claim that there isn't any of those things happening. You give me a break. Iran has lied about everything they've ever been asked about. Their nuclear program, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So you and I have both dealt with a biased media for decades, and I didn't think I could get angry anymore. It's just sort of pitiful. But darn it, I'm angry again, and it's probably taken years off my life. So anyway, very frustrating.
We should not bring this up, Liberty, because sometimes it gets his blood pressure up. But one of the other articles we posted, which is the piece on another American victim, and you've been reading about that because it was, in this case, not only the action of an individual that was killed, but the way one of the Chicago council people responded to it and the way the media responded to it.
Yeah, I think that my generation, speaking as a younger millennial here, we're going to have to learn this hard lesson about who we can really trust, because this tragic killing was really framed as just, oh, she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, not focusing on the fact that this is somebody who was in the country illegally and had been arrested before. And so it could have been prevented. And it makes me wonder how many times people are going to have to be betrayed by voices they should be able to trust before they realize they're not always getting the truth.
Well, are you available to be hired? I mean, that's a great
I'm employed at the moment, but thank you.
Okay. It's we were talking about the media, but it is again outrageous. But the same media that elevated the two individuals that were tragically killed, when they got into confrontations with ICE, trying to block ICE from arresting illegal migrants and immigrants, those two individuals were elevated. Everybody got stories about their families and how noble these two individuals were. There's just no doubt in my mind that the American media wants this young woman, who wasn't confronting anybody. She was walking on the streets of a major American city near her university when somebody that shouldn't be here but was let in under Biden, should have been already thrown out, but Chicago's a sanctuary city, executes her by shooting her once in the head, and the story's already in danger of disappearing down a memory hole.
Yeah. Well, again, whether you mention Laken Riley or in this case Sheridan Gorman, these are names we need to remember. But we're coming to a break here, and I thought we would just very quickly get an update from Collin because we do have a match on the table.
We do, $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match from our friends Michael in Georgia and Jenny in Illinois. And let me remind you, it really gets busy toward the end of the program. So I want to encourage you to give early in the program and not get caught up in the rush toward the end. And now's a great time because you have this dollar for dollar match on the board up to $1,000. 800-347-5151. Point of View is not sponsored by the government in any way. We don't get Doge type money. There is no endowment that's keeping Point of View on the air. And let me be clear, this goal for the week of $150,000, that's not for extras. That's to keep this program coming to your radio station. So if you want to continue to hear Point of View where you're listening, 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net. Take advantage of this dollar for dollar $1,000 match that's on the board right now.
Gary, I know you always like to tell our listeners why you think they should support Point of View.
Well, absolutely, Kerby. I mean, I can't imagine America and the battle that we've been in without Point of View. It's like finding a needle in a haystack to find a media outlet and a program that actually reports facts instead of usually left-wing ideology. And so when you have one, you want to preserve it. You want it to grow. You want it to be there every day. We need many such places. Unfortunately, we don't have them. That's what Point of View is. I mean, when I'm getting attacked by 45 different reporters and media outlets, I know I can call you, Kerby, and you'll give me a chance to get on the air and give my point of view. It's a priceless thing you're doing, and the country is still in an existential moment about whether we're going to survive or not as a nation that understands our liberty comes from God. We're facing foreign enemies and internal enemies, and Point of View has got to be there with the light on to help people understand what's going on.
Let's take a break, and we encourage you right now to make that phone call. I know many of you tend not to call because we have Gary Bauer on. You want to hear what he has to say? This is a perfect time to call 800-347-5151. And certainly, I would encourage you to make that call. You'll have enough time and you won't miss any of the content. Of course, at any point, you can always go to the website, pointofview.net. Please, if we can hear from you right now, we have a match on the table. We'd need to hear from you, and we will be back right after this.
America was founded on a bedrock of biblical values. The best way to help America reclaim that godly heritage is to equip individuals to adopt a biblical worldview in their own life. You can help accomplish that by joining Point of View's Truth Team, and there is no better time to join than this week. The Truth Team is Point of View's core team of supporters, the people who make it possible for listeners like you around the nation to receive a biblical perspective on contemporary issues every day. To continue our mission effectively, Point of View needs to raise $150,000 by this Friday. Help us reach our goal and, most importantly, help Americans adopt a biblical worldview. Join the Truth Team today by visiting pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and toll free 1-800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again by phone, we have, of course, our good friend Gary Bauer in studio, Liberty and Collin. And Collin, how are we doing on the match?
We've got $250 in, so we're down to $750 to go. First gift in. Thank you so much for that. We are grateful. And however you can give right now, your gift is doubled up to that $750 remaining right now. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. This is, again, about operational expenses. This not only enables folks from generation to generation to be able to hear the great content we've been talking about, but it helps keep Point of View on the air in your area. Several ways to give. You can give a one-time gift. You can give a monthly gift. We've got 3 areas there, the $30 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month. We've got some great thank you gifts that you can find online at pointofview.net. You can increase your monthly gift. A number of people have done this already. If you're giving $30 a month, consider $40 or $50 a month as an option. And again, if you're a first-time giver, if you've never given before, we've got this special Patriot Pack with these booklets talking about really America's godly heritage and coming up with America 250 not long from now. I think it would be a great primer to be able to read through those things and get a little bit of knowledge of history before you move along. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net, $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match. We've got $750 of that remaining to go.
Gary, as you well know, one of the things we do is post a number of articles, and one that we've posted comes from our friends at the Wall Street Journal, who sometimes aren't also friendly to us, but in this case, they ask a good question. Is $200 billion too much to win a war? And the Trump administration is probably going to ask Congress for $200 billion because of the fact that we have depleted some of the armaments. And the answers that are coming from some of the senators and representatives on the Democratic side of the aisle is, no, we could spend that on free college, or this would be a setback for Ukraine. And I was thinking about your end-of-day report in which you were reminding us that, this is the same Ukraine government that told us Russia was running out of ammunition when they were running out of ammunition. And not so long ago, $200 billion was just a small down payment on a war with Ukraine, but now in which we are eliminating the nuclear threat from a nuclear Iran, a lot of members of Congress say, no, we can't afford it.
Yeah, it's another one of those examples, Kerby. You would think that the default position of members of Congress would be, spending the necessary funds to make sure America can defend its citizens against enemies, foreign enemies. That's our number one priority. And then if we have anything left over, we can decide after debating whether to provide more funds to an ally or whatever. Ukraine has come to the United States, and I don't want to distract people from what's happening with Iran, but it is I think a legitimate point. Ukraine has come to us multiple times and said we can't keep fighting unless we get more assistance, financial and military assistance. And there's been debate about that, but they've gotten it every time by a bipartisan vote in Congress. But virtually the entire Democrat caucus in the House and the Senate are saying they will not vote in favor of funds for our sons and daughters in the Middle East right now, following the orders they were given by the commander-in-chief. That's inexplicable to me. Most of our history, any elected official in Congress that did that while a war was raging, that would be the end of their political career. But I don't see even much of a backlash about it. We'll see how it plays out.
You did say that there's not been one funding bill introduced in the United States Congress under Joe Biden or President Trump that has not received bipartisan support. But this might be the first time, and a good illustration. Liberty?
Well, one of the things that I see people bringing up is we don't want to get embroiled in another long, unending war. But it seems to me if we were able to win the war decisively sooner, that we could prevent the war from dragging on too long. So it doesn't seem very logical, but maybe I'm misreading something there.
No, I think you're right, Liberty. Of course, nobody wants a long land war in the Middle East or anywhere else, particularly if we fight it the way we've done it in the past, with one hand tied behind our back, and we end up not actually winning the war. In this case, whether you initially agreed with President Trump or not, we learned something really important, that Iran had even more weapons and was further along on their ballistic missile development than even we knew or Israel knew. And so in that sense, this has been very revealing, and that revelation should be internalized, because if we're having some challenges now, if Trump hadn't acted 3 or 4 years from now, it would be even more difficult. They would already have a nuclear weapon, and they would have missiles that could reach most of Europe and maybe even the United States.
Yes. Well, I want to get back to Collin for just a minute, but one of the articles I probably will post for tomorrow, just 2 words, Diego Garcia. And many people go, what are you talking about? Well, if you want to look on a map right now, Diego Garcia is a very small island, which is very far south of India in Iran. And the argument I made as we were talking about this war in Iran, Gary, was that they have missiles that could reach about 2,000 kilometers. But that 2,000 kilometer limit obviously was very underscored, because now almost twice that distance they were able from Iran to launch one of those missiles. And that means that those missiles could have launched towards Europe and could have had even more devastation than many people even knew. So even now we're seeing some of these individuals who before had some hesitations now are starting to say, when they were able to launch 2 missiles that far away and have them land, we were in a much dangerous position with Iran than we ever would have imagined.
That's exactly right. And look, a lot of what the president's doing, he could have just ignored this, let the next president deal with it, which, of course, we've had a whole line of presidents that have taken exactly that approach on a host of issues. That's not who Donald Trump is. But he also, and I've heard him talk about this at great length, he believes that the odds are fairly good that down the road we're facing a very real threat of World War III. You have a rising China. They've made it clear they want to control the Pacific. And he knows if that day comes, none of us want it to come, but if that day comes, we have to have secured our own backyard. It explains what he's been doing in Venezuela, in Cuba, some of the other actions he's taken. But we also need to take other allies of Communist China off the board. And Iran is an ally of both Communist China and of Putin's Russia. So these are what the president is doing is exactly what American citizens should want. They shouldn't have to take the risk of waking up sometime 3-4 years down the road and say, why are we in this mess? Why is there a nuclear threat hanging over New York City and Philadelphia and Boston? Who was responsible for this? Well, that's the president. It's risky. He's probably going to suffer for it politically, but it was the right thing to do.
Well, Gary, it's always great to have you on the program. And I was just thinking, Collin, where else can you hear this kind of intelligent conversation?
Not very many places, certainly not in the mainstream media, for sure. It's always great to have Gary on. I interviewed Gary years ago, and boy, what a leader in thinking from a conservative perspective in America. And you have guests on like Gary all the time, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about Point of View and Truth Team Week, your opportunity to get involved right now. We have a $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board thanks to Michael in Georgia and Jenny in Illinois. Where are we? We've got $650 in now, $350 to go. We've got about 17 minutes left in the hour thanks to Jerry from Georgia, Richard from Minnesota, Buster from Georgia, and Myra from Alaska. They've given just in the last few minutes. Let's see if we can knock out this $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match here in the final few minutes of the hour. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Let me just mention we do have a link to, of course, ouramericanvalues.org. We have the end-of-day report, and I would encourage you to get that. We also have a link to the Campaign for Working Families. Both of those are well aware, and they're on our website at pointofview.net. But when we come back from the break, we'll give you an update. But if nothing else, I hope that this has given you an encouragement, a little bit more information that we need to know. And I recognize that in this uncertainty with this war on Iran, there is a real need for some of you that have the financial resources to step up and help us out. So we would love to hear from you right now. As we go to a break, perfect time to call 800 1-800-347-5151, 1-800-347-5151, or, of course, pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
Restoring America's Godly Heritage. Point of View.
Listening to Point of View, again, like you said, 3 generations. I was a little kid when we first started, and the seeds that are planted in that next generation, whether they're your kids, your grandkids, it's so vital because if we're not passing along truth, if we're not passing along good principles and a godly perspective, a godly worldview, then our fight ends with us. And the legacy that you guys have created, I think, can mirror the legacy that each one of us as parents should be fighting for within our homes, our families, to make sure that the truth of Scripture doesn't stop with us, that we are empowering and preparing the next generation.
Point of View. Restoring America's Godly Heritage.
Chad Hufford, and I was just thinking that there is a 3-generation legacy. He's the second of 3. And I was just thinking, Liberty, it's the same thing with you. Your mother was listening, you're listening, your children are listening, you're the second of 3 generations. And that's part of what Point of View is all about, legacy, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, Point of View helped to form my worldview because my parents always listened to it in the car or in the kitchen. And so much of my civic education came from listening to Point of View. And they were very intentional about talking about what was going on in America and the world from a biblical perspective. And so Point of View was crucial to that. And I try to do the same with my kids. And obviously, I'm so grateful to now work here. It's a little surreal, but we listen to the show together and I try to educate them about these topics. I listen when I'm not here, Kerby. I listen to you. So it is definitely a family ministry in our family.
Might just mention, too, that is the legacy of homeschooling. And I would love to hear from some homeschoolers today, wouldn't you, Collin?
Absolutely. Anybody, homeschoolers, truckers, whoever's listening, there are people all across the United States, 40 states or so, Texas, New Hampshire, South Carolina, North Carolina, Ohio, Illinois. We just heard from Minneapolis, Minnesota, California, North Carolina. Wherever you are, if you appreciate what happens here on Point of View every day, if it has impacted you, your kids, your grandkids, now is the time to pick up the phone. We have $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board, $850 in, so only $150 of that remaining. We've got about 10 minutes left in this hour. Let's knock out that last $150 of the dollar-for-dollar match, and that'll be a great way to get this day started. That said, we have a long way to go, and Kerby, to be honest, to get there, we're going to need some of those leadership or legacy type gifts. We have seen some beautiful gifts of $1,000, $1,500. We'll talk about some of those coming up a little later. We've seen gifts of $30 a month, $50 a month. But we may need a gift of $2,500, $5,000, $10,000. Not everybody can do that, but you might be able to. And you're listening right now, things are okay in your world, or you have, as Wes Stafford with Compassion International used to say, you have enough. And you're willing to share the abundance with others, this is a great place to invest that. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
One thing I thought you might also address that as well. We have some individuals that could give a stock, and by giving a stock gift, you would certainly get the full benefit of the gift and not have to pay capital gains on that, or maybe some of the required mandatory distributions from IRAs and things of that nature. And if somebody is unfamiliar with that, that's something I've done before, I would certainly encourage them to give a call, and we'll call them back and explain some of those details, because it is a way in which you benefit Point of View, but you also benefit from a tax point of view.
Yeah, so many different ways to give. Those would be certainly ones we would consider. And again, You don't have to have all the money today. This is a commitment for the coming year, and might even be easier for you to give monthly. Maybe you don't have, the Lord's impressing on you to maybe give that $50 a month versus a one-time gift today of $600. Spread it out over the year, $50 a month. It's a wonderful way to give, and it usually enables you to give a little more to an organization. If you've never given before, I want to talk to you for just a moment. Maybe you've been listening 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You may have been listening 54 years since the very beginning. Let me tell you, my friend, if you've been benefiting from the ministry of Point of View for that long, you've never given a gift, now's the time to give the gift. What a joyful day to have you join the team, and you've been listening all this time. Today's the day, and we've got matching dollars available right now. We're down to $100 left. We've got about 8 minutes remaining. 800-347-5151.
And I'm just thinking about that, Liberty, because we have the Next Generation broadcast. We have the Know Why podcast. And we really do want to get some of our first-time donors, many of whom would be younger donors, so that they can step up and begin to give to Point of View, because they now have been benefiting from some of the things we cover.
Oh, absolutely. And when we were talking about the generational impact, maybe this is something that was mentioned earlier and I missed it, but we had a testimonial come in a while back from Bill, who had listened and said that 5 generations of his family had been impacted specifically by the booklets, which if people can give monthly at a $30 level, or if you give it for the first time, you'll get the Patriot Pack. But these are short little booklets every single month that are written by Kerby, and they will explain an issue. And he said that they have used them for 4 generations in their families to talk about issues of the day, to help settle disputes. So there are just so many practical resources that help families pass on that biblical worldview that I want to highlight and realize people can take advantage of these.
I think so. And again, those are some resources. Again, I just talked about some upcoming issues. One of those, you and I are writing right now on one having to do with artificial intelligence. And I don't want people to always be fearful, because you talk about, well, some of these robots will be able to do things that are dangerous for people. They're talking about robots going down into the mines, and robots doing things that humans shouldn't be doing because it's dangerous. We're talking about reinventing transportation. We're talking about breakthroughs in biotech that are allowing people to live longer, have fewer diseases. So again, there are some really encouraging things to come from that. But at the same time, we still need to apply our pro-life, pro-family principles to AI, don't we?
Yes, I think it's really about learning to ask those questions, realizing that everything we participate in forms us as human beings somehow. So are there areas where AI can help in medical research or those dangerous jobs like you were talking about? Absolutely. But what about the areas like education or thinking, or the things that really God has called us to do, and people tend to just kind of embrace that without stopping to say, well, how does this interact with my calling as an image bearer? And so those are the kinds of questions that we can ask carefully without a spirit of fear, but just to think critically and biblically.
Well, again, we have just a few minutes before the top of the hour. And number one, I want those of you that maybe could give a small gift to finish that off. But as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, Collin, there may be a few people that could give a larger gift, and we would love to hear from them as well.
Absolutely. And, again, not everybody can give a large gift, but with so many people listening right now, Kerby, I believe there's somebody driving along, maybe sitting in the office, maybe at home, listening in the kitchen, wherever you might be listening today. The Lord has blessed you. You have been blessed by this radio ministry. And the truth is, the Bible's very clear about blessing those ministries that bless you, giving back to those ministries that have given something to you. If you have taken something away from Point of View through the years, and you have the ability, we could really on this midday, third day of a 5-day event, we could really use one of those larger gifts, $5,000, $10,000 or more. There's no limit. You can go as high as you want. Pointofview.net or 800-347-5151. Let's hear from you.
Well, again, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation, obviously, with Liberty. A little bit later, Joshua Barnes will be with us. He has this wonderful YouTube channel, The Bible Explained, and we'll get into some of those things about Israel and Zionism and many of the topics we've addressed here before, but want to get his expertise as well. But as we go to a break at the top of the hour, if you've been waiting to make a phone call, Let's not wait any longer. We're halfway through this week, and we'd love to hear from you. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151.
America's founding fathers knew that freedom requires morality. It was John Adams who said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." If we want to preserve the freedom in America, we must equip Americans with a biblical worldview once more. For over 50 years, Point of View has done just that by applying a biblical perspective to every issue of the day, thanks to our ministry partners, people like you. And that is why I'm asking you to join the Truth Team. And the time to join is right now, because Point of View needs to raise $150,000 this week. Help America reclaim its moral compass. Join the Truth Team today by visiting pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and 1-800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. Across America, live, this is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Second hour today, and we certainly do encourage your phone call, 800-347-5151. In studio, Collin and Liberty. And we also have our good friend Jana on the line. But, Collin, we're doing pretty well, aren't we?
We are. We had a flurry of activity in that last few minutes of the last hour, and I just want to thank these folks quickly. Ronald in Georgia, Pam in South Carolina, Glenn in Georgia, Bill in South Carolina, Helena in Florida, Ernest in Georgia, Andy in Georgia, Nancy in California. Wonderful gifts right there at the end. We had a $1,000 dollar-for-dollar match on the board, and we met it. So thank you for that. Thank you for helping us do that. And as we begin this hour, we're going to celebrate and take a breath and move forward, because we have an anonymous gift from North Carolina, $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match that's come in that we want to use right away. We don't want to hold on to these. We want to use them and help them, encourage you to give. This anonymous giver in North Carolina says, "I want to encourage others to give. I want to spur you on to love and good works." You have the chance to do that right now. So as we begin this hour, and don't wait till the end of the hour. We want to get everybody in we can. 800-347-5151. It's Truth Team Week. Be a part of the team. 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net. $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board right now.
And I've heard the phones really are ringing, so we don't want to take her off too long, but you have a chance now to talk with Jana, don't we?
Yes, and Jana, earlier with the staff, I know you were sharing a really touching story about somebody that called in, and in the past few moments we've been talking a lot about legacy and some of those legacy families that listen to Point of View and the impact that makes. So I'd love if you could share that story again, Jana.
Oh, I would love to. This is one of my favorite stories. We have a friend named Jenny in Illinois, and she was one of 12 children. They moved around a lot because her father was in the military, and they were faithful donors. The mom and dad were faithful donors to Point of View. So about 2 years ago, when we had our Truth Team Week going on, she was going through the channels on her radio, and she heard Point of View, and she immediately thought of her mother, Virginia, who had just passed away 3 years prior. And she pulled her car over off to the side of the road, and she called in immediately. And I happened to be the blessed one that got to take her call, and she shared about her family, and she said she wanted to give a donation in her mother's name. And she has since then become a faithful partner for Point of View. And that last matching challenge we had, part of it was from Jenny. So Jenny from Illinois, thank you so very much.
Wow, great. Well, Jen, I'm going to let you get back to answering the phone because I hear the phones are ringing right now. So
yes.
All right, we'll let you get back to that, and we will get to Joshua Barnes in just a minute. But again, in case somebody just missed it, we do have another match on the table.
We do. It's Truth Team Week. Again, we're listener supported, and Point of View is looking for your help in enabling us to continue to broadcast each and every day, bring you these incredible guests, the roundtables, the conversations, the resources that you find online each and every day. We've got a $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board. An anonymous friend in North Carolina said, I want to encourage others to give, so I'll match every dollar up to $1,500. That is active right now as you call 800-347-5151. Or again, it also works if you go online. No waiting there. pointofview.net. Just takes a couple of minutes. It's safe and secure. Encourage you to call or click right now.
Yes. Just for another few minutes, I thought, Liberty, we might talk about another benefit of AI, and that it relates to what is going on right now in Iran. Many people know that you have the Strait of Hormuz. It's about 21 miles wide, but the reality is they have two shipping lanes, one that comes in about 2 miles wide, one that comes out, and then about a 2-mile gap. And the concern is that Iran in the past has actually put some mines. There are three kinds of mines. I won't get into them, but the most dangerous are the ones that go to the bottom. They're just there in the mud, and nobody knows they're there because they aren't ticking, they aren't electrical or anything, but they then activate when they actually, with their sonar, hear something that sounds like maybe a oil tanker or something like that, and then they will re-energize and shoot straight in the air. And so those are the most dangerous ones. Well, it turns out the United States said, we can actually create boats that drive themselves. You've heard about self-driving cars. These are self-driving boats that go through there, and they drag behind them a particular piece of equipment that makes a sound like an oil tanker. As they pull it by, it sets it off, and it goes up and blows itself out. So it's just another example as we are getting into this high-tech warfare. Some of the concerns are, what about these drones, and what about AI in the military? There might be something that will open up the Straits of Hormuz, and it just shows, again, we shouldn't always be afraid of AI. We should recognize the benefits for which it can give us and still apply a biblical point of view on the things that concern us.
Absolutely. You know, when you say AI, that there's really a lot that encompasses, because we're talking about very precise military technology like you just spoke about, and then also large language models like ChatGPT that maybe people are using to be the therapist, and they shouldn't do that because that's not a very good idea. So it's a very large umbrella, which is why we have to be discerning. But I think that those kinds of advancements that could help keep troops safer and keep human beings safer, with human beings still in the decision-making seat, I think that can be very beneficial.
Well, giving you a couple of benefits and some of the drawbacks. And one of the reasons we encourage Collin people to support the ministry, of course we would able to continue bringing this broadcast, but there are some really significant benefits. The Outlook magazine comes out every month. These booklets come out every month, and there are just some ways in which we can help educate you about these issues from a biblical point of view.
As you give at the $30 a month level, you've got the monthly booklets and the magazine, as you mentioned. And speaking of a large umbrella, we've got a large umbrella that we've included with that $30 giving level this time around. It's a beautiful, huge golf-size umbrella, but it goes down compact size to about 22 inches. It has the Point of View logo on it, and that's our thank you to you if you're giving at the $30 a month level. If you're giving at the $50 a month or more level, we've got bookends available for you, and they're carved with part of the Declaration. They're beautiful wood and carved, and I would encourage you to take advantage of that. It's a quote from the Declaration on there at $50 a month. And then for the $100 a month or more level, this book called The Words That Built America, it's got the Bill of Rights. It's got the Declaration, the Constitution. There are speeches on there. There's songs in there. It's a fabulous book. And as we are coming up on America 250, it's one of those things you'd love to have to be able to look through and read through during this time. And again, right now, if you take all of that away, strip all of that away for a moment, we've still got a dollar for dollar match on the table right now, up to $1,500 from an anonymous friend in North Carolina. Would you call right now, 800-347-5151. Every gift right now is doubled.
Again, we're going to be talking with our good friend Joshua Barnes in just a few minutes. You've heard him on the Next Generation broadcast, a pastor in New Hampshire. We'll talk more about some of these issues with him in just a minute. But don't forget that you can go online, and as you do so, you can also learn a little bit more about some of the gifts we would like to send to you. And you can click on that button that says Give Now. You can see our goal, $150,000, which is, again, just to keep the program going. And if you can help us out, we would greatly appreciate it. If you cannot, please pray for us, if nothing else, because we hope that others can step up and provide that opportunity as well. Going to take a break, but this is a perfect time to call. 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, the website, pointofview.net.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
Conspiracy theories about Israel can be heard on many talk programs and can be read in many blog posts. Danny Bermawi took the time to list 8 common conspiracy theories about Israel and provides a short response to each of them. One is the belief that Israel drags the United States into Middle Eastern wars. He reminds us the U.S. was engaged in Middle Eastern conflicts before the founding of Israel. He also points to many conflicts that were driven by American priorities that were not because of Israel's prompting. Another myth is that Israel would not exist without U.S. tax money. This narrative ignores Israel's self-reliance and economic status, Israel's GDP driven by tech innovation, pharmaceuticals, and defense exports is larger than most states and equivalent to economies like Sweden or Poland. What about the claim that Christians are oppressed in Israel? A quick answer to that is to compare the rights of Christians in Muslim countries to their rights in Israel, where they have full citizenship rights. Another claim is that Israel is a violent country, but the numbers from historical records and verified reports reveal the opposite. Also, the numbers often cited by critics do not consider the nature of urban warfare. Now, some of the Israel conspiracy theories involve Mossad. Supposedly Mossad was behind Jeffrey Epstein, but no U.S. intelligence agency has ever corroborated such a relationship. Mossad supposedly was planting bombs in Qatar and Saudi Arabia in an effort to destabilize these countries and drag them into war. I recommend this article because it provides concrete answers and statistics to many of the common conspiracy theories. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Go deeper on topics like you just heard by visiting pointofview.net. That's pointofview.net. Restoring America's godly heritage. Point of View.
The importance of supporting ministries like Point of View that speak the truth. We complain sometimes that we're not hearing the truth in pulpits around America. But when we have a radio show like Point of View that speaks the truth, that really lays out the issues from a biblical perspective, that gives you the ammunition as teachers of the word and disciple makers to go out there and engage the culture, these ministries, folks, are the ones we need to be supporting in this hour. And that's what y'all do every day, Kerby. And I just hope people will continue to support such a legacy ministry that has meant so much for this nation.
Point of View, restoring America's godly heritage.
20 pounds with, again, Christians engaged, and more significantly, we just talked about earlier in the week about America Reads the Bible. Great opportunities here as well. And just before we get to our guest, I thought one more time, Collin, we need to remind people that we have an opportunity to have a dollar-for-dollar match.
It is Truth Team Week. It's the midday edition of that. We are halfway through the week right now, and 800-347-5151, the number. We have $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board from an anonymous friend in North Carolina, encouraging you to give, doubling your gift as you give. So far, we have $250 in, $1,250 to go. So anything up to $1,250 can be doubled right now. We are so grateful for these gifts that are encouraging others to give because, as you've seen even in the last few minutes, a flurry of activity again. Patricia in Missouri, James, Linda in Georgia all just gave gifts. We're grateful for that. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
If you've been listening to Point of View any length of time, especially during our Next Generation broadcast, you know that one of the guests that both Chelsea and now Liberty have had is Josh Barnes. And Joshua, again, is a Baptist pastor in New Hampshire. Looking forward to maybe getting a chance to meet him this summer, since we're going to actually be talking with some donors up there in New England. But again, we have a couple of links. First of all, to his Facebook page, also to this wonderful YouTube channel, The Bible Explained. A couple more recent ones. Why does the Bible tell us how to vote? Is Bible prophecy being fulfilled today? And one of the things, Liberty, we always appreciate is Josh bringing the great biblical perspective, right?
Oh, absolutely. I love it whenever Josh is able to join on the Next Generation Roundtable. So, Josh, it's great to have you on Point of View today. And I know one of the things that we've talked about recently on the Roundtable is how do we reach our generation with the truth, specifically about Israel, because there are so many conspiracy theories and it seems like they're popping up all the time. And I know you went on a trip to Israel recently and you have just put out so much wisdom about that. And I'd love for you to share that with the listeners a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of the reasons why I really love ministries like Point of View, because I think the answer to this is a solid Bible study. And I think that helps us look at the world with the correct lens when we look at it from the point of view of the Scripture. And so when I was in Israel, it was very eye-opening. I did have the opportunity to go to some of the sites where the terrorist attacks were conducted by Hamas 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, on October 7th, and to see the bunkers where the Israelis are constantly having to hide when missiles are shot at them and all this stuff. And it really put things in perspective, but it wasn't a perspective that let me say it this way. I had already, through looking at the Bible, seen what a biblical view of Israel should be. And then when I got there, it just sort of underscored the fact that we shouldn't be like trying to be against these people. A biblical view of Israel, I think, isn't that hard to come to from the Scriptures. It's like Paul said, hey, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they might be saved. They've rejected their Messiah. We want them to repent and choose their Messiah. One day we believe they will. That's the confident promise that there will be a nation of Israel at one point that finally accepts their Messiah, those that are alive at that time. And we as Christians should just be looking forward to that day and trying to help them see that their Messiah is Jesus and repent of their sins, just like anyone else in the world, right? So when I go to Israel like that, it makes the trip so much better. But just going to Israel on its own does help change perspectives. And I think if anyone had to go there and see that they live every day like they're in America, but also like a bomb could fall on their head, is just an incredible situation that these people are just they have such fortitude. It's amazing. I've been messaging back and forth with some of our guides that were there for the trip in the last couple of weeks. And they're like, yeah, everything's okay. We had to run to the bunker just about every night, but I'm just thinking, how do they do this? I can't imagine living there and just having to suffer all of this stuff. Wow. And it really definitely gives a different view of things like these wars.
One of the things I thought I might even get your thoughts on, and maybe in the future when you are on the Next Generation Roundtable, the commentary today that I have is on conspiracy theories about Israel, in which we talk about a link to 8 common conspiracy theories, but a lot of that has to do with what Israel is. And I'll hold up our booklet that we have on Zionism, because we had a while back Michael Rodelnik on the program, How Should Christians Think About Israel? And the reason he did it is because, as you well know, Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz went kind of back and forth, and then later Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, all friends of the ministry here, went at it. And I think sometimes Christians are trying to sort that out. And I get a sense that when I look at your YouTube channel, you're trying to help Christians sort out some of the misinformation or conspiracy theories that are out there in the world.
Yeah, definitely. There was a recent one that just came out that Bibi Netanyahu was criticizing Jesus or something.
Yes.
Saying he wasn't as strong as Genghis Khan. And I just had to respond to that on my YouTube channel, because it's just, there are all kinds of things like that really don't take a lot of looking into to realize the nonsense. Like, for instance, people will say that pornography is pushed by the Israelis. I think, well, okay, just because a Jewish person is involved with evil things doesn't mean that everyone in Israel is at fault for what one Jewish person does. And these are pretty, I think there is a sense of like this mystery, looking for some conspiracy.
Yes.
They call it black pill. That mentality is addictive to some people, but I think we should overcome that with the scriptures, with common sense, with sound reasoning. And I'm hoping that, I know Point of View is doing that. I hope I can do my part on my channel as well to do that.
Well, again, that is one of the advantages of some of those resources. And I was just thinking, Collin, whether it is, of course, the YouTube channel we're pointing people to, which is kind of a one punch, and then the other punch is No Why podcast. That's a kind of 1-2 punch there between the two, to answer some of the just almost silly things, but unfortunately erroneous things out there on the internet. And that's just another ministry we have here at Point of View.
Well, and we talked about this, I think, last time I was here in the fall, but, you know, so many, and you know this, Liberty, so many young people today are literally getting all of their news from TikTok or some other
Don't get me started.
Social media, and my head explodes when I think of that's where the news is coming from, because there's so much false information. Again, if you want truth, if you want to be part of the truth team, join up with the team here at Point of View. Every day they have facts and figures and resources and incredible guests who can give you the what's exactly happening around the world with what they're learning. They are researching, they are digging, they are writing, they're reading, and they're bringing it all to you every single day. And right now, we've got a special dollar for dollar match on the board, up to $1,500. Right now, $875 in, $625 to go. We've got about 33 minutes remaining in the hour. We would love to wipe out this $1,500 dollar for dollar match. Thanks to Leroy in South Carolina, Jennifer in North Carolina, both made gifts in the last couple of minutes. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
You know, we did post today the Viewpoints commentary, Conspiracy Theories About Israel. Those were 8 common conspiracy theories. Joshua gave us 2 more, so we're up to 10 already. I think after the break, we'll probably add a few more. But if you are saying, I don't know who to believe, I hope that we would be your trusted source for news and information and commentary. And this is why we bring these programs to you, because it used to be, Collin, not so long ago, that you had this monologue, this almost filibuster from the secular side, and Marlon wanted to break that and give another side. Now there's almost too much information with all this cacophony of voices. We don't know who to trust. But if you trust Point of View, I hope that you will give us a call right now. That number is 800-347-5151. You've heard that we have a match, a dollar for dollar match. Can't do any better than that. So as we go to a break, perfect time to call. 800-347-5151. Of course, the website, pointofview.net. We'll be right back.
America was founded on a bedrock of biblical values. The best way to help America reclaim that godly heritage is to equip individuals to adopt a biblical worldview in their own life. You can help accomplish that by joining Point of View's Truth Team, and there is no better time to join than this week. The Truth Team is Point of View's core team of supporters, the people who make it possible for listeners like you around the nation to receive a biblical perspective on contemporary issues every day. To continue our mission effectively, Point of View needs to raise $150,000 by this Friday. Help us reach our goal and, most importantly, help Americans adopt a biblical worldview. Join the Truth Team today by visiting pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and toll free 1-800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this. You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again, if you'd like to join us, I hope you would. 800-347-5151. Liberty and Collin in studio. We have Joshua Barnes by phone, which we'll get to in just a minute. But Collin, I think it's time to get a little bit of an update on where we are.
We have a $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board from an anonymous friend in North Carolina. So far, $975 is gone, $525 remaining. So we have 26 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. 26 minutes remaining to get the rest of this $525. Maybe you could take the $500. Maybe you could take the $25. Maybe you could take it all. Whatever you'd like to give right now, know that it's being doubled and your impact is being doubled by our anonymous friend in North Carolina. 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151. Pointofview.net. You can give there quickly and securely as well. Let me remind you, we're halfway through Truth Team Week. It's on the downhill slide now. $150,000, our overall goal. To be able to meet that, we're going to need gifts of every size, but we're definitely going to need some of those leadership gifts like we're talking about here. $1,000, $1,500, $1,200, $2,500, a $5,000 or $10,000 gift. I know most of us are not able to give those gifts, but some of you are. And if you're able, help us keep Truth Team Week on the air, Point of View on the air. We want to be here for years to come. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
Talking with Joshua Barnes and Liberty, we have some other very good questions for him as well.
Oh, absolutely. You know, Josh, one of the things that we've been seeing unfold in the last month is the war in Iran. And I noticed that a lot of the things you talk about on your YouTube channel are helping people understand Revelation, understand other books in the Bible that relate to end times prophecy. And so we don't want to live in fear, and we also don't want to be arrogant in believing we can pinpoint the exact time and date that Jesus Christ will return or anything like that. But I think you do a really good job of helping people understand the Bible and look at current times with wisdom and biblical discernment. So do you have anything that maybe you could share with us regarding that for a few moments?
Yeah. So a lot of people will say every time they see a war that this must be some sign of the end times. I think that that's probably misguided, and I think that Jesus speaks about it in the Olivet Discourse when the disciples say, "Oh, the temple will be destroyed, so that must be the end times." And Jesus says, well, look, there's going to be wars, there's going to be rumors of wars, there's going to be Antichrist, there's going to be all the things that will happen in the end times that will happen all the time, like between now and then. So don't get too excited about it. Instead, keep your eyes on Christ and keep your eyes on his return and focus on his purpose, which is to spread the gospel to all nations. And I think that is the danger, right? I think sometimes we can get so caught up in what's happening in the Middle East, which is not insignificant. It's certainly something to pay attention to keep an eye on, all of those things, but not to the point that we forget what we're here for. We're here to spread the gospel and to keep our eyes on Christ and let him lead us in the meantime before his return, because no matter what happens in Iran or Iraq or wherever it is, Jesus is returning and we win. So we need to be focusing on that final end, I think.
Again, I'll hold up some of the booklets, one that we've done on Israel. And again, if people go to your Facebook page, they can see some great pictures that you took there, one on Zionism. But I thought I'd pull up this other one on anti-Semitism. And that is, Josh, a number of years ago, we wrote a booklet on anti-Semitism looking at some of the classic arguments against Jewish people, the blood libel and all the rest. But this new one I put together because after the attack of Hamas against Israel back in 2023, we had a whole set of new arguments that came in primarily from kind of your generation and younger, and that comes from the idea that, well, Israel is a bully and we should support the underdog. So it was almost a little bit different kind of argument that was being made, and it's become a justification now for anti-Semitism, which has been first on the left. You can think of some of the anti-Semitic comments made by even members of Congress who are Democrats, but we're also starting to see it on the right. And it seems to me, as a pastor, I'm sure you've thought about this, the need for pastors all over the country and Christians to speak out against anti-Semitism and to support Jewish people.
Yeah, that's especially true. I mean, I had Sam Wilson, who's an evangelist to Israeli people and Jewish people around the world, and he was talking about anti-Semitism, and I had him on the Bible Explained, and this was, of course, born out of my trip to Israel, which really put a burden on my heart to reach Jewish people. And I think that if we could just get the perspective of the Scriptures, Romans 11 is very clear that the Jewish people are beloved because God has made promises to their fathers. And even though many of them are unbelievers, the vast majority of them are unbelievers in Jesus, their nationality as a whole is still beloved because God has a purpose for their future. And so no matter what we say, oh, this Jewish person did that bad thing or whatever, we should still say, even though we decry bad things that bad people do, we still say they are beloved by God. And if they're beloved by God, how can I hate them? I should love them the way God loves them.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. And even we end the whole discussion on the booklet that we have here on Zionism and the rest with a couple of obvious points. And one of those is that Israel is distinct among the nations. God loves the Jewish people forever, has had compassion for Israel. And most importantly, you got to sort of remind this to some of the anti-Semites, Jesus was Jewish. Yeah. And so that is certainly the case. Collin, how are we doing, though, before we get any further into this discussion, because we could go all day with Joshua on that.
A lot of folks calling and clicking right now. We have a $1,500 dollar for dollar from match on the board, and right now we have $1,360 that have come in. $140 to go. We've got 19 minutes remaining. Someone might be able to pick up that $140 right there. Again, double your gift right now, dollar for dollar, 800-347-5151, pointofview.net. Help us continue to keep Point of View on the air for the many, many reasons we've been talking about, including those wonderful resources and guests like Josh. Those are the reasons to continue to support Point of View, along with many others that you've experienced through the years as well. 800-347-5151.
Josh, you made some nice comments about the reason people should support Point of View, but I wanted to give you a chance just before we let you go to challenge some of our listeners to consider what they might do to support this ministry.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be able to be on an episode like this where I can say this, because this ministry has meant a lot to me. And I think there's something more than just the information that's put out. That is certainly amazing and wonderful. But this ministry, Point of View, also encourages people like me who are content creators who are out there trying to say these things, and gathers them together in things like the Next Generation Roundtable and opportunities like that for us to come together. And this is really encouraging the next generation of content creators and radio hosts and so on and so forth to do this thing. Someone is going to have to continue this when wonderful people leave, like Charlie Kirk and things like that. And this is I think, a very wonderful part of this. met Kerby several years ago, I think, on an interview. I was trying to create a new YouTube channel called Point of View. And he came on to interview on my YouTube channel, which was supposed to apply the Bible to the politics. And I didn't realize I wasn't very original in my name of my new YouTube channel. And so I've since changed it. It's now called POV Scriptura. But I do have a second YouTube channel where I take biblical issues,
Right.
the Bible that is explained in one, and apply it to the issues. And that, I think, is just an inspiration I got from this ministry. So it's a very worthy thing, what you're doing here, and what those who are supporting are doing by giving to it.
Josh, thank you so much for that. And Kerby, I think that is just one of the best things we could communicate right now. We are seeing in America an openness to the gospel right now by younger people who are searching for answers, and they have choices. They can turn to TikTok, or they can turn to Point of View, or pastors like Josh, and they're going to get the truth, and that's what they're getting here every single day. You can help support that. $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match on the board, 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, a few other final comments, which we would certainly want to make. And I hope that you will pay attention to not only what we are talking about today, but tomorrow we have a Walker Wildman, and we'll get back into some of the prophetic stuff with Gary Frazier. And again, on Friday, we have Liberty, as well as, of course, I guess we have Kelly Shackelford. So it'll be just a great next 2 days. But as you have already heard us mention, we're in the middle day. We're past halfway, and we aren't even close to halfway to our goal. So anything you can do to help out, we would appreciate it. 1-800-347-5151. Be right back.
Restoring America's godly heritage. Point of View.
Point of View provides a combination of what is truly happening in public policy in the culture around the country, and provides a worldview from which to judge what the believer should do about the culture and public policy. It's a critical source of information, inspiration, and also what possible action steps might be.
Point of View. Restoring America's godly heritage.
Again, Rebecca Hagelin, who I think has a story very similar to one of the individuals that you work with, Collin, and that is Janet Parshall, because both Rebecca Hagelin and Janet Parshall in different areas of the country were listening to Point of View for many years as homemakers, and as a result, really credit a great deal of their education from listening to first Marlon Maddox and then later Kerby Anderson and Penna Dexter. And I think it was striking that then she was moving to Washington, D.C. Her husband's been in the military, which is why she oftentimes had a lot of time to listen when he was off on deployment, and then became the vice president of communications at the Heritage Foundation, and of course to this day has been a great supporter. One other trivia point, years and years ago when we did something that looked a little bit like Truth Team, we actually asked people to support the ministry, and she is the very first person to actually say, you know, I want to give a gift, but I want this to be a challenge gift for others. We hadn't even thought about this idea of a challenge gift. So the very first challenge gift that was ever given was by Rebecca Hagelin.
She was the one that did it.
She's the one that got us thinking, you know, maybe we should do that occasionally. And that's exactly what we've been doing here.
Well, that's a great idea. And Truth Team Week, so important to this ministry. Again, I don't know if you know, but this is a listener-supported radio program. We are not receiving grants from the government. There's no endowment set up that's feeding this. You have a very small team that works very, very hard to provide incredible resources to you, great guests, quality communication about topics of the day, and it's just something that has impacted, again, this country now for 54 years. Some of you probably would not be homeschooling right now had it not been for the work of Point of View and Marlon Maddox in the early days. But your gifts enable this ministry to continue. So we've had on the board a $1,500 dollar-for-dollar match from an anonymous donor in North Carolina. We can celebrate now because we hit that and beyond, and the phone lines are still going. So let me say this. We have 10 minutes remaining. It is the midway point today of Truth Team Week. It's only 2 days left. 2 days left, 2 hours each day. That's it. So we encourage you, help us make up some ground. We're a little behind where we'd like to be. We'd love to be at 50% right now. We're not quite there. So whether you give a small gift or a large gift, it doesn't matter. It's more about participation. If you're benefiting from this ministry, take this moment and benefit the ministry back with your best gift at 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or pointofview.net.
You know, Liberty, when I travel around, sometimes people will say, you didn't talk about this issue. So sometimes near the end, I always like to drop in one of those. And this is 3 cheers for Delta Airlines because they have suspended its dedicated flight assistance service for members of Congress. If you're not familiar, if you're a member of Congress, you can bypass the TSA lines and go right to your gate. And they said, wait a minute, because of this partial government shutdown, enough is enough. So the Delta CEO is one of a few executives that have actually signed a bipartisan letter to Congress saying, you've got to stop this because, I'll just give you his quote, TSA officers just receive $0 in their paychecks. This is simply unacceptable. It's difficult. It's not impossible to put food on the table, put gas in the car, and pay rent when they're not getting paid. And they are very frustrated that because it's primarily the Democrats have said, we're not going to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security. That's lapsed since mid-February. You have these individuals that sometimes are not showing up for work. We now know of 400 TSA officers who've quit the force entirely. And so this is an attempt by at least Delta Airlines, and I suspect many of the others are going to take suit as well, saying, you know, members of Congress, we've given you an opportunity to bypass the lines that everybody else is standing in, and so now you get to stand in the lines like everybody else.
Good. I'm really happy to hear that.
Exactly.
Because they are elected to represent us and the people and their interests. And I think they forget about that. And so sometimes you have to kind of feel, you know, the average person, they can't just stop going to work. They can't just shut down because they're trying to make a point. They have to provide for their families. And so this is one of the things that I hope that Congress members will maybe take this lesson to heart. Maybe they can suffer through the same lines that a lot of other people are suffering through.
I can testify. I've seen John Cornyn standing in a line by himself, no security, no special treatment, standing in line with everybody else. So I know there are people who do it already, but I don't think that Congress should be exempted from almost anything they pass. I think almost everything they pass should affect them. But needless to say, we're in the middle of this final opportunity here. 6.5 minutes remaining in this hour. 800-347-5151. Let's see how far down the line we can get here in these last few moments. Call now, click now. If you don't like talking to a friendly volunteer, maybe you're an introvert like I am, and you said, Collin, you're an introvert? What? We'll talk about that another time. But go to pointofview.net. It just takes a couple of minutes. It's absolutely safe and secure, and you don't have to talk to anybody. But we do have some fantastic phone volunteers answering your calls right now. 800-347-5151, or again, pointofview.net.
An introvert is somebody who can be very vocal on the air, but then as soon as he walks out the door, go, phew.
Yeah, that's it.
That was enough. That was enough. Anyway, I didn't think I'd get such a response from what Delta Airlines is doing, but these are the kinds of things we talk about every single day, and I hope that you will see the value in that. Let me one more time, as we've mentioned before, recognize that for some of you, this has been a difficult financial time for you, and I would encourage you to pray. But at the same time, I hope that some of you can maybe make up the difference, and you probably figured out, if you've been doing the math here, we have a very significant hill to climb. So those who can make up the difference would be greatly appreciated, and I know some of you have the ability to give a larger gift. We have been fortunate to have some of these matches that have been $1,000 or $1,500. And I guess maybe we'll have something tomorrow, but you never know what we will have. So whatever you can do would be helpful. We're going off the air in just a few minutes, but you can still give us a call at 800-347-5151.
I just wanted to thank a couple of folks, Teresa in Virginia, Beth in South Carolina, Charles in California, Kathleen in Georgia, Patty in Alabama, Richard in Arizona, Angela in North Carolina, Connie in Georgia, Laura in Arizona, and Jean all gave gifts just in the last few minutes. We are so, so grateful. Don't stop calling. Keep clicking. 800-347-5151 or pointofview.net.
I did mention a couple of things that are on the website, and one of those is the Viewpoints Commentary, Conspiracy Theories about Israel. We make that available. Maybe if you've heard one of those and didn't know how to answer it, this is a piece that was put together that we can link to it. Maybe you have a piece that you say, I know somebody that believes that. You could hand it to them, and these are the kinds of resources we want to put in your hands. Of course, we have the Pray for America. Don't forget, we have the highlights of Point of View on Spotify. We have all sorts of resources. So when you support Point of View, you're not just supporting the 2-hour radio program, you're supporting all other associated resources, including, of course, the Know Why podcast. And Liberty, it's just been great to have you in studio.
Well, always love to be here, Kerby. Obviously, Point of View means a lot to me, and it's an honor to be here, be on the team.
And you're going to be with us on Friday again.
Yes.
And so that is the case. And she sits on this table and chair many times. So that is the case. 1-800-347-5151. Please give that call to us. And we want to thank Megan and Steve for the help behind the scenes. See you back here tomorrow on Point of View.
America's founding fathers knew that freedom requires morality. It was John Adams who said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." If we want to preserve the freedom in America, we must equip Americans with a biblical worldview once more. For over 50 years, Point of View has done just that by applying a biblical perspective to every issue of the day, thanks to our ministry partners, people like you. And that is why I'm asking you to join the Truth Team. And the time to join is right now, because Point of View needs to raise $150,000 this week. Help America reclaim its moral compass. Join the Truth Team today by visiting pointofview.net or call 1-800-347-5151. That's pointofview.net and 1-800-347-5151. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.